The rain came in sheets that November night, the kind that turned streets into rivers and made windshield wipers useless. Ethan Parker stood behind the counter of Old Maple Diner, watching water cascade down the windows in patterns that reminded him of everything falling apart. The neon sign outside flickered red and blue, casting shadows across empty booths that should have been full on a Friday. But this was the edge of town where the asphalt cracked and nobody came unless desperation or habit dragged them through the door. The coffee maker hissed, steam rose in clouds that smelled like burnt grounds and too many hours. Ethan poured himself half a cup black and let it warm his hands. His reflection stared back from the chrome surface of the espresso machine. 34 years old. Dark circles under green eyes that used to be brighter. Hair that needed cutting. A uniform shirt that had been washed so many times the blue had faded to something closer to gray. 5 years. 5 years of this. The bell above the door chimed. Joe stumbled in from the parking lot, water streaming from his trucker cap, his jacket dark with rain. He shook himself like a dog and grinned. "How's my favorite waiter doing tonight?" Ethan grabbed a clean mug without being asked. Joe always sat at the counter. Joe always ordered coffee with 2 creams. Joe always told stories about the road, most of them, at least all of them, entertaining. Living the dream, Joe. The trucker settled onto his usual stool. His hands were calloused and scarred, the hands of a man who loaded his own freight. Just came off a 10-hour haul from Pittsburgh. Refrigerators. You ever try to strap down 40 refrigerators in the back of a semi? Can't say I have. It's an art form, like Tetris, except if you mess up, everything shifts and you're dead in a ditch. Ethan set the coffee down. Joe wrapped both hands around it and breathed in the steam. For a moment, his face softened into something almost vulnerable, the way people looked when they thought nobody was watching. "You seen that storm rolling in from the west?" Joe's voice dropped lower. "Weather Service says it's going to get worse before it gets better." "Story of my life." Joe laughed, but it died quick. He pulled a silver flask from his jacket pocket and poured a measure of something amber into his coffee. The sharp smell of whiskey cut through the diner air. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Joe, you're driving tonight. Just one. Takes the edge off. Takes the edge off until you're wrapped around a telephone pole." The trucker's eyes went hard for a second, that flash of anger that came when someone touched a nerve. Then it passed. He pushed the flask away. "You sound like my ex-wife. Your ex-wife was probably smart. Smart enough to leave me anyway." The door opened again. Sarah Martinez came in with her backpack weighing down one shoulder and textbooks tucked under her arm. 19 years old community college nursing student, working 2 part-time jobs and still short on rent every month. Ethan had watched her count coins on this counter more than once, her face going red when the total fell short. She slid into booth 3 without looking up, already pulling out her anatomy textbook. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail that had given up hours ago. Dark circles under her eyes matched Ethan's. He grabbed a pot of coffee and a clean mug. Sarah glanced up when he approached. "I'm just studying. I probably shouldn't even order anything." "When's the last time you ate?" She looked away. "Lunch, maybe." Ethan set the mug down and poured. The menu was already on the table. She picked it up with the kind of careful deliberation people used when they were calculating dollars and cents. "I'll just have toast. Toast and eggs." "Ethan, toast, eggs, and hash browns." "On me. I can't keep letting you do this." "Then don't think of it as letting me. Think of it as accepting help from someone who's been exactly where you are." Her eyes filled. She looked down at her textbook so he wouldn't see. "I'll pay you back. When I'm working as a nurse, I promise. You'll pay it forward. That's all I ask. Help someone else when you can." He was back at the counter before she could argue. Marcus appeared in the kitchen window, his dark face gleaming with sweat from the grill. He slid Sarah's order across the metal ledge. "You're too soft, Parker." "Maybe. That girl's gonna think you want something. I want her to finish school and not drop out because she can't afford to eat. That's what I want." Marcus grunted and disappeared back into the kitchen. The grill sizzled. The exhaust fan rattled. Through the window, Ethan could see him scraping grease into the trap, his movements practiced and efficient. Marcus had worked kitchens for 30 years. He knew every shortcut, every way to squeeze another hour out of equipment that should have been replaced a decade ago. The diner settled into its familiar rhythm. Joe told a story about a blizzard in Montana. Sarah bent over her textbook, lips moving as she memorized the names of bones. Rain drummed on the roof. The neon sign flickered. Ethan's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out. A text from Mrs. Henderson next door. Lily's asking for you. I told her you're working, but she's having trouble sleeping. His chest constricted. He typed back, put her on, 30 seconds. Then the phone rang. Hey, sweetheart. Daddy. Her voice was small and thick with sleep. I had a bad dream. What was it about? I dreamed you didn't come home, that you went away like mommy. The words hit like a fist. Ethan turned away from the counter, facing the wall so nobody could see his face. I'm always coming home, baby. Always. I promise. But what if something happens? What if your car crashes? It won't. I'm the most careful driver in the world. I drive so slow that snails pass me on the highway. She giggled. That's not true. You're not that slow. Slow enough. And Mrs. Henderson is right there if you need anything before I get home. Okay, she yawned. Daddy, when are you going to stop working nights? The question landed in his stomach like lead. Soon, sweetheart. Soon. You always say that because I mean it. I'm working on making things better. Okay, I love you, Daddy. I love you too, Lily, more than anything in the world. Now go to sleep. I'll see you in the morning. He hung up. His hands shook. The phone felt too heavy. Emily's face surfaced in his memory. The way she looked the morning before the accident, kissing Lily's forehead before her shift at the hospital. The way she always said everything would be okay even when it wasn't. The way she promised they'd figure it out together. Then a Tuesday afternoon, a drunk driver running a red light, a phone call that shattered the world into before and after. 2 years old. Lily was 2 years old. Someone had to be there when she woke up. Someone had to make breakfast and tie her shoes and hold her when the nightmares came. Day shifts didn't allow for that. Day shifts meant daycare and babysitters and missing the moments that mattered. So he'd quit his job at the software company, quit the salary and the health insurance. In the future, that made sense. Took night shifts at a diner on the edge of town where the pay was minimum wage plus tips, and the tips barely existed. But he was home in the mornings, home to make her chocolate chip pancakes, home to walk her to the bus stop, home to read her bedtime stories before his shift started. 5 years of this, 5 years of trying to be both parents, 5 years of failing at it. Ethan pushed away from the wall. Joe was watching him with careful eyes. She okay, just nightmares. Kid's got a good dad. My old man was never around, worked long-haul routes and drank when he was home. You're doing right by her. The words should have felt like comfort. Instead, they felt like accusation. Because doing right meant Lily woke up alone in the middle of the night. Doing right meant he missed school plays and parent-teacher conferences. Doing right meant accepting that he would never be enough. The door opened, a blast of cold air and rain. Marcus's voice came from the kitchen. We got another one. But Ethan was already looking. The woman who walked in didn't belong here. That was the first thing. The second was that she knew it and came anyway. Her suit was black, perfectly tailored, the kind that whispered money instead of shouting it. The cut was European, Armani maybe, or something even more exclusive. Her heels clicked on the linoleum floor with the confidence of someone who had never worried about rent. A leather handbag hung from her shoulder, soft and expensive, probably worth more than Ethan's car. She was maybe 45, though it was hard to tell. Good bones, dark hair pulled back in a style that was both severe and elegant. Her face was angular, intelligent, the kind of face that calculated odds and made decisions that moved millions of dollars. She surveyed the diner like a general surveying a battlefield. Her gaze touched every detail. The cracked vinyl booths, the water-stained ceiling tiles. Joe hunched over his spiked coffee. Sarah bent over her anatomy textbook. The menu board with its faded lettering advertising the blue plate special. Then her eyes landed on Ethan. Something flickered there. Recognition, maybe? Or assessment? She held his gaze for 3 seconds that stretched into an hour. She chose the corner booth, the one nobody liked because it was too far from the counter and too close to the bathroom. She slid in and set her handbag on the seat beside her with careful precision. Ethan grabbed a menu and a glass of water. His feet carried him across the floor even as instincts screamed that something was wrong. Everything about this woman screamed wrong. She didn't fit. She was a Rolex in a pawn shop, a Rolls Royce in a junkyard. He set the water down. Good evening. What can I get you tonight? Her eyes were dark brown, almost black. They studied his face the way a scientist studied a specimen. Coffee, black, and a slice of apple pie. Her voice was smooth and controlled, every syllable precisely placed. No accent, or rather, an accent so carefully erased that its absence was noticeable. Coming right up, he brought the coffee, first then the pie. She thanked him with a nod that wasn't quite polite and wasn't quite dismissive, something in between, something that made him feel measured. Back at the counter, Joe leaned close. Who's the suit? No idea. She a lawyer? You in trouble. Not that I know of. Well, she's watching you like you owe her money. Ethan glanced back. The woman was staring at her coffee cup, but he'd caught the movement when she looked away. Joe was right. She was watching. But while the night stretched on, Sarah finished studying and ordered another coffee she didn't touch, just holding the cup for warmth. Joe told another story about a truck stop in Oklahoma. Marcus cursed at the grill when the pilot light flickered, and the woman in the corner booth sat perfectly still. Her coffee went cold. The pie lay untouched except for a single bite. Her hands rested on the table, no phone, no book, no distraction, just sitting, watching. At one point, Ethan approached with the coffee pot. Warm that up for you. She looked up. Those calculating eyes, no thank you. Anything else I can get you? No. He retreated, his neck prickled with the sensation of being observed. Joe left around 10. He clasped Ethan's shoulder on his way out. You take care of yourself, kid, and thanks for keeping me honest. Anytime. Sarah packed up her books shortly after. She stopped at the register. Ethan handed her the receipt. She looked at the total. 0. Ethan, her voice broke. Pay it forward. Remember. She nodded, unable to speak, and walked into the rain. The diner was nearly empty now. A couple in booth 5, young and arguing in low voices about money and rent and all the things that slowly killed love. The woman in the corner booth. Ethan cleared tables and restocked napkins and refilled salt shakers. Normal tasks, familiar rhythms. But the weight of that dark gaze followed him everywhere. At 10:30 she stood. The movement was fluid and controlled. She walked to the register. Her heels clicked. Her face betrayed nothing. Just the coffee and pie. Yes, $8.50. She handed him a credit card. Black, heavy, the kind with no spending limit. He ran it through the machine. The receipt printed. She signed it. Her handwriting was precise and elegant. Then she placed the merchant copy on the counter and walked toward the door. Ethan looked down. The tip line was blank. 0. The disappointment settled in his stomach like a stone. Not surprised. Rich people rarely tipped well. They thought the meal was payment enough. They never thought about rent or electric bills or daughters who needed new shoes. Still, she'd sat there for over an hour, watched him work, and left nothing. He folded the receipt and moved to clear her table. That's when he saw the envelope. It sat beneath the edge of the plate where the pie had been. White, heavy stock. Folded once with sharp creases. On the outside, in that same precise handwriting, for the waiter who remembers names. Ethan's hand trembled as he picked it up. The paper felt expensive. His fingers left marks on the pristine surface. He looked toward the door, but the woman was gone. Rain and darkness. The red neon sign reflected in puddles. Inside the envelope was a business card and a single sheet of paper. The card was heavy embossed lettering that caught the light. Victoria Hale, CEO, Hale Industries. An address downtown in the financial district. A phone number. The paper read, I need to see you. This is not charity. This is a proposal. Come to Hale Industries tomorrow at 10 in the morning. Ask for Victoria Hale. Don't ignore this. His heart hammered. Victoria Hale. He knew that name. Everyone did. Forbes had ranked her in the top 50 self-made billionaires in America. Tech industry, started her company in a garage with borrowed money and built it into an empire worth billions. Venture capital, AI development. Something about algorithmic trading platforms that Ethan didn't fully understand. She was in the news constantly, opening new facilities, donating to hospitals, speaking at conferences about innovation and disruption and the future of technology. And she just sat in his diner for an hour, left 0 tip, and told him to come to her office. Ethan stared at the note until the words blurred. His mind spun through possibilities. A prank, a scam, some kind of test or experiment for a TV show. Rich people playing games with poor people's lives. But something about the way she'd watched him, the calculation in her eyes, the precision of every movement. This wasn't random. This was deliberate. He slipped the note and card into his pocket and finished clearing the table. The couple in booth 5 left 10 minutes later. The diner was empty except for Marcus in the kitchen. Ethan counted out the register. $43 in tips total. He split it according to hours worked. His share came to $17. He'd worked 8 hours. $2.12 per hour in tips. He locked the front door at midnight. Marcus came out from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. "You see that woman in the corner? Hard to miss. You know her." Ethan pulled out the business card. Marcus took it, squinting at the lettering. "Hale Industries. That's the tech company, right? The one that's worth billions. That's the one. And she wants to see you." Apparently, Marcus handed back the card. His face was carefully neutral. "What for? I have no idea. People like that don't talk to people like us unless they want something. You be careful. I will." They walked out together into the parking lot. Rain had stopped, but the air was thick with moisture. Marcus climbed into his 20-year-old Toyota. Ethan got into his Honda Civic with 200,000 miles and a check engine light that had been on for 6 months. The drive home took 15 minutes. Streets were empty. Traffic lights blinked yellow. His mind wouldn't stop spinning. Victoria Hale, a proposal, not charity. What could a billionaire possibly want from a waiter? He thought about ignoring it, throwing the card away, pretending it never happened. Rich people played games. This was probably some thought experiment or research project. Maybe she was writing a book about service workers. Maybe she got off on watching people struggle. But then he thought about Lily, about the way she'd learned not to ask for things she wanted, about the books she borrowed instead of owned, about the scholarship applications he filled out every year that went nowhere. If there was even a chance this could help her, even 1%, could he walk away? The apartment building was dark, 3 stories of red brick with rusting fire escapes. His apartment was on the second floor, number 2C. The hallway smelled like cooking oil and mildew. He unlocked the door as quietly as possible. 2:30 in the morning. The apartment was dark except for Lily's nightlight, a small plastic moon that cast soft blue shadows. He checked on her first. She was asleep, curled on her side with Mr. Whiskers tucked under her chin. The stuffed rabbit was gray from washing one ear, slightly torn, where the stitching had come loose. Emily had bought it the day Lily was born. Her hair was spread across the pillow in tangles. Her mouth was slightly open. She breathed with the perfect peace of childhood sleep. Ethan stood in the doorway watching her. Sometimes he could see Emily in her face, the shape of her nose, the curve of her chin, little pieces of the woman he'd loved scattered through their daughter like fragments of light. His phone buzzed, an email. He pulled it out, squinting at the screen in the darkness. The subject line read, "An important update regarding spring semester tuition." His stomach dropped before he even opened it. "Dear parents and guardians, we are pleased to announce the implementation of our new enhanced learning program for the spring semester. This comprehensive initiative will include smaller class sizes, additional STEM resources, individualized learning plans, and enhanced technology integration in all classrooms. To support this program, tuition will be adjusted to reflect the increased value and resources provided. The new semester tuition will be $2,500 effective January 15th. We understand this represents a significant increase from the current rate of $1,200 per semester. However, we believe the enhanced educational experience will provide exceptional value for your child's development. Payment plans and financial aid applications are available through our administrative office." Ethan read it 3 times. Each time the number stayed the same. $2,500, due in 6 weeks. His bank account had $340 in it. His rent was $650. Utilities another $120. Car insurance $98. Groceries $200 on a good month. Gas to get to work $60. Phone bill $45. He did the math in his head. Even if he picked up every available shift, even if tips somehow doubled, even if he stopped eating entirely, he'd still be $1,000 short. He sat down on the edge of his bed. The mattress sagged in the middle. The room was cold because he kept the thermostat at 62 to save money. Lily couldn't transfer schools. She had friends there. Her teachers knew her. After Emily died, that school had been the one stable thing in her life. Her second-grade teacher, Mrs. Chen, had held her when she cried during the first week back. The principal had waived late fees when Ethan couldn't pick her up on time. It was the only place where Lily felt safe. He pulled out the business card again. The embossed lettering caught the street light coming through the window. Victoria Hale, Hale Industries. A proposal. The note said it wasn't charity. But what else could it be? What could he possibly offer a billionaire? He thought about Marcus's warning. People like that don't talk to people like us unless they want something. But what if that something was legitimate? What if this was real? The card felt heavy in his hand. He turned it over. On the back, written in the same precise script, "Your daughter deserves more." His breath caught. She'd watched him on the phone with Lily. She'd heard that conversation. She knew. He lay down without undressing. Sleep was impossible. He stared at the water-stained ceiling and watched shadows move across the plaster. Car headlights swept through the window at irregular intervals. Emily's voice echoed in his memory. "Give her the life I couldn't give her." He'd tried. God, he'd tried. But trying wasn't enough. Trying didn't pay tuition. Trying didn't erase the check engine light or fix the refrigerator that leaked or replace Lily's winter coat that was 2 sizes too small. At 4 in the morning, he got up and made coffee. The pot gurgled and hissed. He stood at the small kitchen window, watching the street below. A few early morning workers trudged toward the bus stop. A homeless man pushed a shopping cart filled with plastic bags. Lily appeared in the kitchen doorway at 6. Her hair was wild. She wore pajamas with stars on them, the pants too short because she'd grown 3 inches in the past year. She climbed into his lap without a word and pressed her face against his chest. He wrapped his arms around her. "Did you sleep okay after we talked?" "Yeah." She yawned. "I dreamed about Mommy again." "What did you dream?" "That she was making pancakes, the kind with chocolate chips. And she was singing that song she always sang." "What song?" Lily hummed a few notes. Ethan's throat closed. It was a Fleetwood Mac song Emily used to play on Sunday mornings. "Landslide." "What else?" She said she was proud of us, that we were doing good. His eyes burned. "She is, baby. I promise she is. Are we doing good, Daddy?" The question was so earnest, so full of trust. He held her tighter. "We're doing the best we can, and that's all anyone can do." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "Some kids at school have 2 parents. Why don't I?" He'd answered this question 100 times. It never got easier. "You did have 2 parents. Mommy loved you so much. But sometimes bad things happen and people go away. Not because they want to, because accidents happen. Like the car accident. Like the car accident. Are you going to have an accident? No. I'm very careful. I always wear my seatbelt. I never drive too fast. And I always come home." She looked up at him. "Promise, promise." They made pancakes together. Lily mixed the batter while Ethan heated the griddle. She insisted on measuring everything herself, her tongue poking out in concentration as she counted cups of flour. The pancakes came out lumpy and misshapen. They ate them with too much syrup and pretended they were perfect. At 7:30, he walked her to the bus stop. Other kids were already there with their parents. Most of the parents looked as tired as Ethan felt. Working-class neighborhood, single mothers and fathers working multiple jobs, immigrants sending money back home. Everyone grinding through each day and hoping tomorrow would be easier. The bus pulled up, yellow and loud. Lily hugged him tight. "Love you, Daddy. Love you too, sweetheart. Have a good day at school." She climbed the steps, found a seat, waved through the window. The bus pulled away in a cloud of exhaust. Ethan stood there until it disappeared around the corner. Then he walked back to the apartment and stared at Victoria Hale's business card for 20 minutes. At 8, he called the number. A professional voice answered immediately. "Hale Industries. How may I direct your call? I need to speak with Victoria Hale. May I ask who's calling Ethan Parker?" There was a pause. Just a second. Then, "One moment, please." Classical music played, something by Bach. The notes were precise and mathematical and somehow made him more nervous. 30 seconds. Then a click. "Mr. Parker." Victoria's voice, smooth and controlled. "I'm glad you called." His hand was sweating. I got your note. Will you come? I don't understand what this is about. Come to my office at 10. I'll explain everything. Can you give me some idea now? No, this conversation needs to happen in person. How do I know this isn't some kind of scam? Because I left my card. Because my company is publicly traded. Because you can Google me and see exactly who I am. He had. He'd spent an hour at 3 in the morning reading every article he could find. What do you want from me, 10 o'clock? A silence. Then softer. Please. This is important. She hung up. Ethan stood in his kitchen holding the phone. Every instinct screamed trap. Rich people didn't help poor people. They exploited them, used them, discarded them when they had extracted whatever value they could. But Lily's face swam in his vision. The way she'd learned not to ask for the science book. The way she'd accepted the too small winter coat without complaint. The way she'd asked if they were doing good. He looked at the clock. 9:15. The building was downtown 45 minutes away in traffic. He had exactly one suit, the one from his wedding 7 years ago. It hung in the back of his closet, wrapped in dry cleaner plastic. He pulled it out, navy blue. The shoulders were tight now, the pants hid above his ankles, but it was the best he had. He showered and shaved, put on a white shirt that was slightly yellow at the collar from age. Tied a tie he'd learned to knot from a YouTube video before his wedding. In the bathroom mirror, a stranger stared back. Someone trying to look professional. Someone pretending to belong in places he didn't. At 9:30, he was in his car. The check engine light glowed orange. The car made a rattling sound when he accelerated. But the engine turned over and that was enough. Traffic was thick heading downtown. He merged onto the interstate and crawled through 3 lanes of brake lights and exhaust. The city skyline grew larger. Glass towers that reflected clouds. Buildings where people made decisions that moved markets and changed lives. Hale Industries was easy to spot. 40 stories of steel and glass, modern architecture that looked like something out of a science fiction movie. The kind of building that said, "We're the future." He found parking 3 blocks away, a meter that took credit cards. He fed it $5 and hoped that would be enough time. The walk to the building felt like walking to an execution. Every step took him further from the world he knew, briefcases and expensive shoes, suits that cost more than his monthly rent, people who belonged here. He didn't. The lobby was marble and chrome. A massive sculpture made of twisted metal hung from the ceiling, abstract and expensive and probably meaningful to someone. The reception desk was white and curved, staffed by 2 women who looked like they'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Ethan approached. His reflection in the polished floor looked small and out of place. "I'm here to see Victoria Hale." The receptionist looked up. Her smile was professional and distant, the kind that didn't reach her eyes. "Do you have an appointment?" She asked me to come. "My name is Ethan Parker." The woman's smile didn't change, but something shifted in her gaze. She picked up a phone and murmured something too quiet to hear. 30 seconds, then she hung up. When she looked at him again, there was surprise. Not quite respect, but something close. Recognition that he wasn't who she'd expected. 38th floor, elevator on the left. He rode up alone. The elevator was glass-walled, showing the city dropping away beneath him. By the 20th floor, he could see the river. By the 30th, the entire downtown spread out like a map. The doors opened onto a hallway of dark wood and recessed lighting. Quiet. The kind of quiet that came from thick carpet and heavy doors and rooms designed to muffle sound. A young man in an expensive suit met him immediately. Dark hair, sharp jawline, the kind of generic handsomeness that came from good genes and better grooming. "Mr. Parker." "Yes, right this way." They walked past offices with glass walls. People sat at computers with multiple monitors. Others stood at whiteboards covered in equations and diagrams. Everyone looked focused and intense and slightly manic, like they were building something that mattered. The assistant stopped at a set of double doors at the end of the hall, knocked twice, waited. "Come in." The office was massive, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a desk that could have fit Ethan's entire apartment, minimal furniture. Clean lines, everything in its place with calculated precision. Victoria Hale stood behind the desk. She wore a different suit today, charcoal gray, perfectly tailored. Her hair was pulled back. Her face showed nothing. "Mr. Parker is here." "Thank you, David." The assistant left. The door closed with a soft click. Ethan stood there feeling like an intruder. Victoria gestured to the chairs across from her desk. Please sit. He sat. The chair was leather and expensive, and probably cost more than his car. Victoria didn't sit immediately. Instead, she walked to a small table near the window where an elaborate coffee maker sat all chrome and glass and buttons that probably did things regular coffee makers didn't. Coffee, sure. She made 2 cups. The machine hummed and hissed. Fresh beans ground with precision. Water heated to exact temperature. The smell filled the office rich and complex. She brought both cups to the desk and sat across from him. It felt strange watching a billionaire make coffee. He'd expected her to have someone do it for her. Thank you for coming. Her voice was calm, measured. I wasn't certain you would. I almost didn't. But you did. Why? He wrapped his hands around the cup. It was warm and solid. Because I need to understand what this is about. Why you sat in my diner for an hour. Why you left 0 tip. Why you're asking me here. Victoria took a sip of her coffee, set it down with careful precision. The tip was a test. Heat flared in his chest. A test I needed to see how you'd react to being overlooked, to being made invisible. Most people show their true character when they think nobody's watching or when they're treated as less than. Ethan stood, the chair scraped against the floor. You tested me like some kind of lab experiment? Yes, you insulted me to prove a point. I observed you to verify what I suspected. Victoria's voice stayed level. And you passed. You didn't curse me. Didn't complain to your coworkers. Didn't even frown. You thanked me and wished me a good night. Ethan moved toward the door. I don't know what kind of game this is, but I'm not interested. It's not a game, then what is it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you got bored and decided to mess with some poor waiter's life. Test his character. See how the lower classes behave. Write a paper about it. Sit down. Please, he kept his hand on the door handle. I came here because I thought maybe you needed something. That maybe this was real. But you're just another rich person playing games with people who can't afford to play. I'm offering you a job. The words hung in the air. Ethan turned. Victoria stood now, meeting his eyes directly. Community outreach manager for a project I'm launching. $75,000 a year. Full benefits. Health insurance, dental vision. Retirement matching. And a scholarship for your daughter at one of the best private schools in the state. Full tuition covered through high school. The number hit him like physical force. 75,000. He made 23 working 60-hour weeks. What do you want from me? His voice came out quieter than he meant. I'm just a waiter. I don't have a degree in community outreach. I don't have connections. I don't have experience. What could I possibly do for you? Victoria walked around the desk closer now. You've been there. You know what it's like to work 2 jobs and still come up short. To smile at people who don't see you. To make choices no one should have to make. I need someone who won't treat struggling families like charity cases. Someone who will see them as people. She picked up a folder from her desk, thick, heavy. She handed it to him. He opened it slowly. Inside were documents, spreadsheets, photographs, mission statements, and budget projections. The header on the first page read Second Chances Initiative, a comprehensive support program for single-parent families. He read through it. His hands trembled slightly. The program was massive: job training and placement assistance, childcare support, educational grants for children of single parents, housing assistance, legal aid, mental health services, all coordinated through a central office with caseworkers and counselors and support staff. The budget was in the millions. The scope was staggering. You want me to run this, I want you to help build it, to make sure it actually helps people instead of just making me feel good about myself. Victoria sat back down. You have 3 days to think about it. If you say yes, you start in 2 weeks. Ethan closed the folder. This is too much. There has to be a catch. The catch is that you'll work harder than you've ever worked, that you'll carry the weight of knowing families are depending on you, that you'll have to make decisions that affect real lives. She met his eyes. If that sounds easy, then you're not the right person. He wanted to say yes. The word was there, pressing against his teeth. $75,000. Lily's tuition, health insurance, a future that wasn't just grinding through each day, hoping tomorrow would be easier. But nothing was free. Not like this. Not from people like her. I need to think about it. Victoria nodded. 3 days. You have my number. He left the folder on her desk and walked out. His legs felt unsteady. The elevator ride down was a blur of glass and falling sensation. On the street, he stood in the cold November air and tried to breathe. People streamed past him, their faces blank and focused. Everyone going somewhere. Everyone with purpose. He didn't know where to go. Home felt too small. The diner felt too familiar. He walked for 20 minutes without direction. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Henderson. Lily got off the bus okay. She's doing homework at my place. He should feel relieved. Instead, he felt hollow. At a coffee shop 3 blocks from Hale Industries, he sat with a cup he didn't drink and stared at nothing. The folder's contents replayed in his mind. Second Chances Initiative, $75,000, full benefits. What was the real cost? His shift at the diner started at 6. He arrived at 5:30. Marcus was already there prepping for the dinner rush. He looked up when Ethan came in. How'd it go? Ethan hung up his jacket. She offered me a bone, doing what community outreach, for a program helping single-parent families. How much? Ethan hesitated. Then $75,000 a year. Marcus's spatula stopped mid-flip. $75,000 plus benefits and a scholarship for Lily. The cook stared at him, then turned back to the grill. What does she want in return? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Rich people don't give, Ethan. They buy. What do you think she wants to buy from you? I don't know. That's what scares me. Jenny pushed through the kitchen doors with an armload of dishes. She was young, 25, maybe working her way through cosmetology school. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, tired eyes that tried to stay cheerful. Who's buying what? Ethan got a job offer. Marcus's voice was flat. From that billionaire who came in last night. Jenny's eyes went wide. Victoria Hale, I heard about her. My cousin worked for one of her companies. And she's ruthless. Fires people without blinking. Cuts entire divisions if they don't meet quotas. My cousin said she's brilliant, but cold. Like everything's just numbers on a spreadsheet. She set the dishes in the sink. You sure you want to get involved with someone like that? Ethan grabbed an apron. I don't know what I want. You want to take care of your kid. Marcus scraped the grill with hard, angry motions. We all get that. Just make sure you're not trading one kind of broke for another. What do you mean there's broke where you don't have money, and there's broke where you lose yourself trying to get it? He pointed the spatula at Ethan. Don't lose yourself. The dinner rush started. Ethan fell into the familiar rhythm of tables and orders and customers who barely looked at him. A family with 3 kids who couldn't afford dessert. An elderly couple who split one meal and left a $1 tip. A construction worker who counted change for coffee. He saw himself in all of them. The careful calculations, the small sacrifices, the quiet dignity of people doing their best with too little. Around 8, his phone buzzed. He checked it in the kitchen. An email from Lily's school. Again, reminder: spring semester tuition increase takes effect January 15th. Payment plans available through the administrative office. $2,500. 6 weeks away. He leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. The enormity of it pressed down like physical weight. Marcus appeared beside him. You okay? Lily's school tuition is going up. $2,500 for next semester. Jesus, you have that? Not even close. The cook was quiet for a moment. Then maybe that billionaire's offer ain't such a bad thing after all. Maybe. But what if it is? What if it's not? Ethan opened his eyes. What if I take and I'm terrible at it? What if I fail and let down all those families counting on me? What if I lose everything trying to be something I'm not? Marcus put a heavy hand on his shoulder. Or what if you're good at it? What if you help people? What if Lily gets to go to a good school and you stop worrying about rent? That's a lot of what ifs. Life is what ifs. The question is, which ones you're willing to bet on? After his shift, Ethan picked up Lily from Mrs. Henderson's apartment. The older woman lived next door, a widow in her 70s who'd taken it upon herself to help after Emily died. She waved away his thanks like always. That child is a blessing. Don't you ever thank me for spending time with the blessing. Lily held his hand as they walked the 2 blocks home. The November air was cold and sharp. Their breath made clouds. "Daddy, can we stow 'em at the store? I need pencils for school." They went to the 24-hour grocery on the corner. Fluorescent lights too bright. Floors sticky with tracked-in dirt. The place smelled like bleach and old produce. Lily went straight to the school supply aisle. She knew where everything was. She picked up the cheapest pack of pencils, already knowing not to ask for the mechanical ones or the ones with patterns. On the way to the register, they passed the book section. Lily stopped. Her eyes caught on a colorful cover. It was a kid's science book. Planets and animals and the human body. Bright illustrations. The kind of book designed to make learning exciting. $15. Lily's hand reached toward it, then stopped. She looked up at him. "Can I?" She didn't finish. Just looked at the book, then back at him, then away. "Next time, sweetheart." His voice came out rough. "It's okay, Daddy. I can get one from the library." She said it with such easy acceptance, like she'd practiced the words, like she'd learned that wanting things only led to disappointment. They bought the pencils and walked home. Lily chattered about school, about a science experiment with vinegar and baking soda, about a boy named Michael who'd shared his crackers at lunch, about a drawing she'd made in art class. Ethan listened and made the right sounds, but his mind was elsewhere. On that book. On the way, Lily's face had lit up for just a second before she'd learned to dim it. After she was asleep, he sat at his laptop and searched for Victoria Hale. More articles, more interviews. Forbes profiles and TechCrunch features and Wall Street Journal analyses of her business strategy. Most of it was familiar. Self-made billionaire, tech industry disruptor. Started her company with $50,000 of credit card debt and turned it into a unicorn. But then he found something buried deeper. A local newspaper article from 2010. The headline read, "From waitress to boardroom, Victoria Hale credits late mother's work ethic." He read it slowly. Victoria Hale's mother, Sarah Hale, had worked as a waitress at Morton's Diner for 20 years. Single mother after her husband died when Victoria was 3. Worked double shifts most of her life. Put Victoria through state college on a patchwork of scholarships and loans and tips saved in coffee cans. Sarah Hale died in 2018. The article didn't say how, just that she'd passed after a long illness. Ethan stared at the screen. Victoria's mother had been a waitress, a single parent, just like him. That's why she'd come to the diner. That's why she'd watched him. That's why she'd left that note. She was looking for something, or someone. A mirror of her mother, maybe. Or herself. Or the man who'd help them when no one else would. He read more, searched deeper. Found a eulogy Victoria had given at a charity gala in her mother's honor. The transcript was available online. "My mother taught me that dignity isn't about how much money you have. It's about how you treat people when nobody's watching." She remembered every regular customer's name. She knew their kids and their struggles and their small victories. She made them feel seen. When I was 15, she was hit by a drunk driver on her way home from work. Broke her back. 3 surgeries. Physical therapy for months. We had insurance, but it wasn't enough. We were going to lose everything. There was a man who used to come into Morton's every morning. Construction worker, could barely afford breakfast. But when he heard what happened to my mother, he organized a fundraiser. Got the whole neighborhood involved, raised enough to cover most of the medical bills. My mother tried to find him after she recovered. Wanted to thank him, pay him back. But he'd moved away. She never got to tell him what his kindness meant. She spent the rest of her life looking for ways to pass that kindness forward. And when she died, I promised I would do the same. Not because it's good business, not because it looks good in press releases, because dignity matters, because being seen matters, because sometimes one person's kindness can change everything. Ethan read it 3 times. Each time his throat got tighter. She wasn't testing him. She was looking for him. For that construction worker. For someone who remembered names and saw people and helped without expectation of return. He closed the laptop. His hands were shaking. At 2 in the morning, he lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Sleep was impossible. His mind spun through scenarios. Take the job. Help families. Make enough money to give Lily a real life. Or refuse. Stay safe. Keep grinding. Keep failing slowly. Emily's voice echoed. Give her the life I couldn't give her. He'd been trying, but trying wasn't enough. At 5:30, he gave up on sleep, made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and watched the sky lighten through the window. At 6, Lily padded out in her pajamas, climbed into his lap without a word, pressed her face against his chest. Morning, baby. Morning, daddy. They sat in silence. Her breathing was slow and even. Outside, the city woke. Cars started. Buses rumbled past. People began their daily grind. Lily looked up at him. Can I ask you something always? If you could help other kids like me, would you? The question was so simple, so direct. Of course, sweetheart. Why do you ask? I heard you talking to Miss Henderson yesterday. About a job, about helping families. You have good ears. So would you. If you could help other kids whose mommies or daddies aren't there anymore, the answer should have been obvious. But fear made it complicated. I don't know if I'd be good at it, but you're good at helping people. You help people at the diner all the time. That's different. That's just being nice. Being nice is helping people. Her voice was matter of fact. So if you could do more of it, why wouldn't you? Out of the mouths of babes, Ethan held her closer. You're right. Then you should do it. She yawned and snuggled deeper into his arms. He made her chocolate chip pancakes. She insisted on helping mixing the batter while he heated the griddle. The pancakes came out better this time, almost round. At 7:30, he walked her to the bus stop. She hugged him extra tight before boarding. Love you, Daddy. Love you too, sweetheart. Have a good day. The bus pulled away. He watched until it disappeared. Then he pulled out his phone and called Victoria Hale's number. The assistant answered. I need to speak with Victoria. May I ask who's calling? Ethan Parker. A pause, then just a moment. The whole music played. Bach again, precise and mathematical. 30 seconds felt like hours. Then Mr. Parker. I'm in. His voice was steady. But I have conditions. I'm listening. 6-month trial period. I don't take the scholarship for Lily until I've proven I can do the job. I keep working 1 shift a week at the diner to remember where I came from. And every decision about the program goes through me. I'm not a figurehead. If I do this, I do it right. Silence on the other end, long enough that he thought maybe he'd pushed too hard. Then Victoria's voice was something new in it. Something that might have been respect. Deal. You're tougher than I thought. I learned from my wife. She worked doubles and never complained. When can you start? I need to give Bob 2 weeks' notice at the diner. He's been good to me. 2 weeks. Victoria agreed. Welcome aboard, Ethan. After he hung up, he stood on the sidewalk outside his apartment building for 5 minutes. The morning sun was breaking through clouds. The street was waking up. He just bet everything on a stranger's proposal, on a billionaire's promise, on his own ability to do something he'd never done before. Either it would work or it would destroy him. But at least he'd tried. At least he'd taken the leap. At least he could tell Lily that when she asked if they were doing good, the answer was yes. We're trying to do good, for ourselves and for others. He went inside and looked at the calendar. 2 weeks until his life changed. 2 weeks to prepare, to finish strong at the diner, to get his affairs in order. 2 weeks before everything became different. He spent those 2 weeks in a strange liminal space, working his shifts at Old Maple Diner while mentally preparing for something he couldn't quite imagine. The corporate world, an office on the 38th floor, decisions that affected real lives. Bob took the news better than expected. The old man just nodded and clapped him on the shoulder. You're doing the right thing. This place will still be here if you ever need to come back. I'm keeping 1 shift a week. That was part of the deal. Bob's eyebrows rose. You negotiated, I did. Good for you. Don't let them turn you into something you're not. That's why I'm keeping the shift. To remember, smart man. Word spread through the diner. Marcus congratulated him gruffly. Jenny seemed genuinely happy. Even Joe the trucker raised his coffee cup in salute. You're moving up in the world, kid. Don't forget us, little people. Never. But underneath the congratulations, Ethan sensed something else. Doubt, maybe. Or concern. People who'd grown up poor knew that sudden wealth came with costs, that nothing was free, that the rich played by different rules. He felt it himself, late at night when sleep wouldn't come, during quiet moments at the diner when he caught himself wondering what he'd gotten into. What if this was a mistake? What if Victoria changed her mind? What if he failed spectacularly and ended up worse off than before, but then he'd think of Lily, of the tuition bill coming due, of the science book she'd wanted but wouldn't ask for, of all the small indignities of poverty that ground people down one disappointment at a time. He had to try. On his last full day at the diner before starting the new job, something strange happened. A reporter showed up. She was young, mid-20s, wearing business casual and carrying a recorder. She sat at the counter and ordered coffee. Ethan brought it over. Anything else? Actually, I'm looking for Ethan Parker. I'm with the City Tribune. His stomach dropped. That's me. I was hoping to ask you a few questions about your new position with Hale Industries. How did you know about that? She smiled. It's my job to know things. Victoria Hale doesn't usually hire people without extensive credentials. A diner waiter landing a $75,000 position is news. It's not news, it's just a job. But what makes you qualified? Ethan set down the coffee pot. I don't think I want to answer that. Is there something inappropriate about your relationship with Ms. Hale? What? No, there's nothing inappropriate. She's offering me a job, that's all. The reporter leaned forward. So she's offering a high-paying corporate position to someone with no relevant experience or education, and you expect people to believe that's purely professional. I expect people to mind their own business. The public has a right to know how billionaires spend their money and who they're giving opportunities to. This conversation is over. Mr. Parker Ethan walked away. His hands were shaking. Bob appeared at his elbow. You want me to throw her out? No. Just let her finish her coffee and leave. But the damage was done. The reporter stayed for 20 minutes watching, taking notes. Then she left. Ethan's phone rang 2 hours later. Victoria, have you seen the news? What news? There's a story online. City Tribune, about your hire. He pulled it up on his phone. The headline made his stomach twist. Billionaire Victoria Hale plucks diner. Waiter for high-paying position. What's the real story? The article was careful. It didn't accuse anyone of anything directly, but the implications were clear. Questions about qualifications, speculation about their relationship, quotes from unnamed sources suggesting nepotism or worse. By evening it had spread. Local news picked it up. Social media exploded. Everyone had an opinion. Some people defended Victoria, said she was giving someone a chance who deserved it, said this was what real philanthropy looked like. Others were less kind. Gold digger, scandal. What did he do to earn this? Ethan read the comments until his eyes burned, then stopped because it was making him sick. The worst came the next day. Lily's teacher called in the afternoon. Mr. Parker, I wanted to give you a heads up. Some of the children have been talking. Their parents saw the news and, well, kids repeat what they hear at home. What are they saying? Things about you and money and Ms. Hale. Lily doesn't understand most of it, but she knows it's not nice. She came to me, crying during lunch. Rage burned through his veins, hot and righteous. Did you address it? I spoke to the children involved, but I wanted you to know. Thank you. I'll talk to her. When Lily got off the bus that afternoon, her eyes were red. She walked slowly, her backpack dragging. Ethan met her at the door, knelt down to her level. Hey, sweetheart, Mrs. Chen called me. Want to tell me what happened? Her lip trembled. Some kids said mean things. What kind of things? They said you were after someone's money, that you did something bad to get a job. She looked up at him with confused, hurt eyes. Did you do something bad, Daddy? His heart broke. No, baby. I didn't do anything bad. I'm just trying to make things better for us. Then why are they being mean? Because sometimes people don't understand. And when they don't understand, they say things that aren't true. But it hurts, I know. He pulled her close. I know it hurts, and I'm so sorry. That night after Lily was finally asleep, Ethan called Victoria. I can't do this. Her voice was calm. What happened? The article. The rumors. Kids at Lily's school are teasing her, calling me a gold digger, saying I'm after your money. Ethan, the money isn't worth her dignity. I'm sorry, I can't. He hung up before she could respond, turned off his phone, sat in the dark living room and stared at nothing. He'd made the wrong choice, jumped too fast, believed too easily, and now Lily was paying for it. At midnight, he finally went to bed. Sleep came in fits and starts, punctuated by dreams of Emily's shaking her head in disappointment. The knock came at 8 in the morning. Sunday, his one full day off. He opened the door to find Victoria Hale standing in the hallway of his apartment building. She looked completely out of place in her expensive coat and heels surrounded by peeling paint and water-stained carpet. "Can I come in?" He stepped aside because he didn't know what else to do. Victoria entered the small apartment. Her eyes took in everything. The second-hand furniture, the toys scattered on the floor, the kitchen table with 3 chairs because the fourth had broken and he couldn't afford to replace it. Lily appeared from her bedroom. She was still in her pajamas, hair wild from sleep. She stopped when she saw Victoria. "Who's that daddy?" "This is Miss Hale. He didn't know how to finish." Victoria walked over and crouched down next to Lily. Her expensive coat brushed the worn carpet. "Hi, Lily, I brought you something." She pulled a book from her bag. The science book, the one from the store. Lily's eyes went wide. She looked at Ethan, uncertain. He nodded. She took the book carefully, like it might break. "Thank you." Her voice was barely a whisper. Victoria stayed crouched there. "Your dad is one of the bravest men I know. He said no to a lot of money because he loves you, because he wanted to protect you. That's what real fathers do." Lily's lip trembled. "But the kids at school? The kids at school don't know what they're talking about." Victoria's voice was gentle but firm. "My mom was like your dad. She worked hard. People looked down on her sometimes. But I was proud of her. And you should be proud of your dad. He's a good man. Don't let anyone tell you different." Lily nodded. Tears ran down her cheeks. Victoria stood and turned to Ethan. "I'm handling the newspaper. They'll print a retraction, and I've already called Lily's school. If any child harasses her again, there will be consequences." She walked to the door, then stopped. "If you walk away, I respect that. But know this, you're not doing this for money. You're doing this so other families don't have to feel what you're feeling right now. Your daughter will be proud, not because you're rich, because you help people." She left. Lily climbed into his lap, still holding the book. "Daddy, is she nice?" He thought about it. The test, the 0 tip, the way she'd crouched down to Lily's level and spoken to her like an equal. "Yeah, baby, I think she is. Then maybe you should help her, like you help people at the diner." He held his daughter and looked at the science book in her hands. Thought about Sarah Hale working herself to death so her daughter could have a chance. About the construction worker who'd helped when no one else would. About the weight of kindness passed from stranger to stranger. Maybe belief wasn't about trust. Maybe it was about hope. And maybe hope was worth the risk. That afternoon, Victoria's assistant called. The City Tribune had printed a retraction. Not just a correction, a full retraction, admitting their sources were unreliable and their implications unwarranted. The assistant's voice was cool and professional. "Ms. Hale wanted you to know that she's also made a donation to Lily's school, a new anti-bullying program. It starts next week." Ethan didn't know what to say. "She still expects you on Monday if you're willing. 8 o'clock, 38th floor." He looked at Lily. She was reading her science book, completely absorbed. Her face had that serious concentration she got when something interested her. "Tell her I'll be there." Monday morning came cold and clear. Ethan wore his wedding suit, kissed Lily goodbye, drove downtown in his rattling Honda. The building looked even taller in daylight, glass and steel reaching toward clouds. He rode the elevator to the 38th floor. David met him with a professional smile. "Welcome to Hale Industries, Mr. Parker. Let me show you to your office." His office. The words felt surreal. It was small by corporate standards. But to Ethan, it looked massive. A desk, a computer, windows overlooking the city, his name already on the door. David handed him a badge. "Building access. You'll need this for security." "Thank you. Ms. Hale would like to see you at 9. Conference room B. Okay." David left. Ethan stood in his office feeling like an imposter. He sat at the desk. The chair was comfortable. The computer was new. Everything smelled like possibility and fear. At 9, he found conference room B. Victoria was already there with 3 other people, 2 men and a woman, all wearing suits that cost more than Ethan's monthly rent. Victoria made introductions. "This is James Chen, our legal counsel. Sarah Rodriguez, head of community partnerships. And Michael Thompson, financial director. They'll be working with you on the Second Chances initiative." Everyone shook hands. Their grips were firm and professional. Their eyes were measuring. Michael spoke first. We've allocated $3 million for the first year. That gives us room for roughly 200 families if we're careful. 200. Ethan tried to process the number. Sarah leaned forward. I've been reaching out to potential partner organizations, job training programs, childcare providers, housing assistance nonprofits. Everyone's interested, James added. We'll need to be careful about legal compliance, tax implications, liability issues, but I've drafted some initial frameworks. They talked for 2 hours, budgets and timelines and organizational structures. Ethan listened and took notes and tried to keep up. Half the jargon went over his head. ROI. Metrics. Stakeholder engagement. Finally, Victoria turned to him. Thoughts. Everyone looked at him, expectant. I think we're forgetting the most important thing, which is these aren't numbers on a spreadsheet. They're people, families. Every one of them has a story and a struggle and a reason they need help. If we treat this like a business problem, we'll fail. We need to treat it like what it is, human beings trying to survive. The room was quiet. Then Sarah smiled. I like him. Michael nodded. Fair point. James made a note. We'll need to balance that with practical considerations, but noted. Victoria just watched him, something like satisfaction in her eyes. The meeting broke up. People returned to their offices. Victoria asked Ethan to stay. When they were alone, she said, You did well. I barely understood half of what they were saying. You understood the part that matters. She stood by the window. I can teach you the business side, but I can't teach you empathy. You either have it or you don't. Why me, though? Really, there must be hundreds of people who could do this. She was quiet for a moment. Then my mother used to say that some people have a gift for seeing others, not just looking at them, but actually seeing them, recognizing their humanity, their dignity. You have that gift. I watched you in that diner. You remembered everyone's name. You helped without being asked. You treated people like they mattered. That's just being decent. No, Victoria turned to face him. Decent is not treating people badly. What you do is different. You make people feel seen. In a world that treats the poor as invisible, that's revolutionary. He didn't know what to say to that. Go home, Ethan. Get some rest. Tomorrow we start building this thing for real. He left the office as the sun was setting. The city glowed below. Lights flickered on in windows. People finished work days and headed home to families. Ethan picked up Lily from Mrs. Henderson's. She threw her arms around him. How was your first day? Good, baby. Really good. Are you going to help people now? That's the plan, she smiled. Mommy would be proud. His throat closed. Yes, sweetheart. I think she would be. That night, he didn't work at the diner. Bob had given him the week off to transition. So Ethan made dinner for Lily spaghetti with sauce from a jar. They ate together at the small table. Afterward, she showed him her science book, pointing out facts about planets and animals, her face glowing with excitement. Did you know Jupiter has 79 moons? I did not know that. And pandas eat bamboo for 12 hours a day. That's a lot of eating, she laughed. Flipped more pages, soaked up knowledge like a sponge. Watching her, Ethan felt something shift in his chest. This was why. This moment. Her joy. Her curiosity. Her chance to be a kid without worry. Whatever happened next, whatever challenges came, he'd made the right choice. He'd bet on hope. Hop, the first morning felt like walking into a foreign country where everyone spoke a language Ethan had never learned. He arrived at 7:30, half an hour early, and found the 38th floor already humming with activity. People moved through the hallways with purpose, their expensive shoes silent on thick carpet, their faces focused on screens and spreadsheets and problems he couldn't begin to understand. His office waited exactly as he'd left it. Clean desk, new computer, windows overlooking a city that looked different from this height. Cleaner, more organized. Like poverty only existed in certain designated zones that couldn't be seen from here. He logged into the computer using the credentials David had provided. His inbox already contained 47 emails, meeting invitations, policy documents, introductions from people whose titles he had to look up to understand what they did. Director of Strategic Initiatives, Vice President of Corporate Social Responsibility, Senior Manager of Stakeholder Relations. He'd been a waiter 3 days ago. Now he was supposed to understand what stakeholder relations meant. The first email from Victoria was simple. Staff meeting at 8:30. Conference room A. Bring questions. Conference room A turned out to be massive. Glass walls, a table that seated 20, screens on every wall displaying data and charts and projections. 12 people were already seated when he arrived. Victoria sat at the head. She gestured to an empty chair near the middle. Ethan took it, felt every eye in the room assess him. A woman across the table leaned forward. She was maybe 35, blonde hair pulled back in a style that probably required professional help, wearing a navy suit that screamed authority. You must be Ethan Parker. I'm Jennifer Matthews, VP of Human Resources. Welcome to Hale Industries. Thank you. What did you say your background was? MBA, public policy. Her tone was pleasant. Her eyes were not. Actually, I worked in tech before transitioning to hospitality. Transitioning to hospitality, Jennifer smiled. That's a diplomatic way to put it. Someone down the table coughed. It might have been covering a laugh. Victoria's voice cut through. Ethan brings direct experience with the populations we're trying to serve. That's more valuable than any credential. Of course. Jennifer's smile didn't waver. I'm sure his perspective will be very educational. The meeting proceeded. Budget reviews, timeline discussions, partnership proposals. Ethan took notes and tried to follow conversations that moved at breakneck speed through concepts he barely grasped. When someone mentioned cadence, he had to discreetly Google it under the table. Key performance indicators. He should have known that. Halfway through, a man named Robert Chen raised his hand. He was older, maybe 50, with gray at his temples and glasses that made him look perpetually skeptical. I have concerns about the risk profile of this initiative. We're essentially investing $3 million based on qualitative assessments rather than quantitative metrics. Victoria turned to Ethan. Response. Every eye swiveled to him. Heat crawled up his neck. I think reducing people to quantitative metrics is part of the problem. When someone needs help, you don't look at their credit score and decide if they're worth saving. You look at whether they're trying, whether they have potential, whether one break could change their trajectory. Robert's eyebrows rose. With all due respect, that's exactly the kind of emotional decision-making that leads to wasteful spending. Emotional decision-making is what your mother did when she packed your lunch every day and drove you to school and believed you'd amount to something. Sometimes emotion is the whole point. The room went very quiet. Then Victoria spoke. Robert, run the numbers. But Ethan's right about the philosophy. We're not venture capitalists looking for return on investment. We're investing in dignity. The meeting ended 10 minutes later. People filed out. Ethan stayed in his chair, heart pounding. He just contradicted a senior executive in his first real meeting. Jennifer paused at the door. She looked back at him. Her smile was sharp as broken glass. Bold choice confronting Robert like that. Let's hope it works out for you. After she left, Victoria closed the door. They were alone in the massive conference room. You didn't need to defend me. Ethan's voice was tight. I can handle skepticism. That wasn't skepticism. That was a test. Victoria walked to the windows. Jennifer's been here 8 years, Robert 12. They've seen dozens of initiatives come and go. They wanted to see if you'd fold under pressure. Did I pass? You held your ground without being disrespectful. Yes, you passed. It doesn't feel like it. Get used to that feeling. Victoria turned to face him. This place runs on a different fuel than your diner. People here are smart and ambitious and absolutely ruthless when they need to be. They'll smile while sharpening knives. You need to learn which smiles are real. How do I do that? By remembering why you're here. By not letting their games make you doubt yourself. She walked toward the door. And by working harder than anyone else so they can't dismiss you. The next 3 weeks were baptism by fire. Ethan arrived before dawn and left after dark. He read policy documents until his eyes burned. Attended meetings where he understood maybe 60% of what was said. Made phone calls to nonprofits and community organizations to build partnerships. The program took shape slowly. They'd start with job training for single parents in 3 industries: healthcare, technology, and hospitality. Partner with companies willing to hire people with employment gaps. Provide childcare assistance and transportation support. Offer educational grants for children. The paperwork was staggering. Legal agreements, tax compliance forms, background check protocols. insurance requirements. Every simple idea spawned 50 pages of documentation. Ethan worked through lunch most days. His desk accumulated coffee cups and protein bar wrappers. The suit jacket came off by 10 each morning and didn't go back on until he left. Other employees watched him, some with curiosity, others with barely concealed contempt. The whispers followed him through hallways. That's the waiter. Victoria's charity case. Wonder how long he'll last. In the break room one afternoon, he overheard two women talking by the coffee maker. Neither noticed him in the corner. I heard she's paying him $75,000. Can you imagine I have a master's degree and I make less than that, probably sleeping with her? That's how these things work. His hands clenched around his water bottle. He wanted to confront them, tell them they had no idea what they were talking about. But Victoria's words echoed, "Don't let their games make you doubt yourself." He left the break room without his coffee. The isolation was worse than the whispers. He ate lunch alone, worked in his office with the door closed, avoided the casual conversations that happened around the water cooler or in elevators. Nobody wanted to be friends with the outsider who'd skipped every rung on the corporate ladder. At night, he kept his promise. One shift a week at Old Maple Diner, Friday nights 6 to midnight. Back in his uniform, pouring coffee, remembering names. Marcus raised an eyebrow the first time Ethan showed up. Thought you were too fancy for us now. Made a deal. One shift a week, to keep yourself humble. To remember why I'm doing this. The diner felt like home in a way the office never would. The familiar smells. The regular customers. Joe with his trucker cap and his stories. Sarah stopping by between shifts at the hospital, now wearing scrubs instead of studying them. She hugged him when she saw him. You made it out, just trying to help other people do the same. You will. She pulled back smiling. You already did. 4 weeks into the job, Victoria called him into her office late on a Thursday. The sun was setting, painting the windows gold. We're ready to launch. Her voice was calm, but something underneath suggested this mattered more than she was letting on. First round of applications opens Monday. I want you to personally review everyone. Everyone, that could be hundreds. That's why I'm giving you an assistant. David will help with initial screening, but final decisions are yours. What criteria should I use? She handed him a folder. Inside were profiles, single parents in difficult circumstances. Some had applied through partner organizations. Others had heard about the program through word of mouth. Use your judgment. Look for people who are trying, who have potential, who need a break. He took the folder home that night, didn't work his diner shift, sat at his kitchen table after Lily was asleep and read through 50 applications. Rachel Morrison, 32, 2 kids ages 5 and 8, working overnight stocking shelves at a grocery store, trying to get certified as a medical biller, needed help with course fees and childcare. Daniel Wright, 26, single father of a 3-year-old daughter, mother left 2 years ago, working construction during the day, online classes at night for computer programming, behind on rent. Jennifer Zhao, 40, 3 kids. Husband died in an industrial accident, cleaning houses to make ends meet. Wanted to become a licensed electrician, but couldn't afford the apprenticeship program. Every file was a story. Every story was someone's entire life, condensed into bullet points and financial statements in desperate hope. By midnight, he'd flagged 20 applications. People who were trying so hard they were breaking themselves. People who reminded him of himself 5 years ago. Monday morning, he submitted his recommendations. Victoria approved them all without changes. Tuesday, they made the first calls. Ethan dialed Rachel Morrison's number. It rang 4 times before she answered. Her voice was breathless, like she'd been running. Hello, Ms. Morrison. This is Ethan Parker from the Second Chances Initiative. Oh, God, she sucked in air. I've been waiting for your call. I'm sorry, I'm at work. Can you hold on? Background noise, voices, then a door closing and sudden quiet. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, I'm on break. Ms. Morrison, I'm calling to let you know your application has been accepted. Silence, long enough that he thought the connection had dropped. Ms. Morrison, I'm here. Her voice broke. Are you serious? Completely serious. We'd like to help you with your medical billing certification and provide childcare assistance while you're in class. She made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. I've been trying for 2 years. I've applied for every scholarship, every grant. Nobody ever calls back. We're calling back. And we're going to help. After they hung up, Ethan sat at his desk staring at nothing. His hands were shaking. One phone call, 5 minutes, and he'd just changed someone's life. The program launched officially on November 20th. They held a small press conference. Victoria spoke about opportunity and dignity. Local news covered it with cautious optimism. Applications flooded in, hundreds of them. David and two new assistants helped with initial screening, but Ethan reviewed every file personally. Sometimes he worked until midnight, reading stories that made his chest ache. By the end of the first month, they'd accepted 50 families. 50 lives potentially changed. 50 chances at something better. The results started showing almost immediately. Rachel Morrison enrolled in her certification course. Daniel Wright found a programming job through a partner company. Jennifer Zhao started her electrician apprenticeship. Ethan visited them when he could, showed up at Rachel's graduation from medical billing class, met Daniel's daughter, brought coffee to Jennifer at her work site. Victoria noticed. "You're getting personally involved. Is that a problem?" "No," she smiled. "It's exactly what I hoped you'd do." But not everyone succeeded. A woman named Patricia Allen dropped out of the program after 3 weeks. Family emergency, eviction, the cascade of crises that poverty brought with it. Ethan tried to help, made calls, pulled strings, but sometimes the hole was too deep and the ladder too short. He took it hard, sat in his office afterward and stared at her file. All that potential, all that effort, gone. Victoria found him there at 7 in the evening. "You can't save everyone, I know that. Do you? Because you look like someone who thinks they failed, didn't I?" She sat across from him. "My mother used to say that helping people isn't about batting 1,000, it's about stepping up to bat. Patricia might not have made it this time, but she knows someone tried. That matters more than you think." Does it? Because she's still on the street. For now. But maybe next time she'll try again because she remembers that someone believed in her. You can't measure impact in 1-month increments. The words helped, not much, but enough. At home, Lily asked questions about his work. He kept it simple. "Daddy helps families who need extra support, like Mrs. Henderson helped us after Mommy died." "Are they sad like we were?" "Some of them. But we're trying to make them less sad." She thought about this seriously. "That's good, Daddy. Everyone should have help when they're sad." 6 weeks into the program, Marcus showed up at Ethan's office. He looked uncomfortable in his work clothes, surrounded by glass and chrome. His hands were rough and scarred, his posture defensive. "What are you doing here?" Ethan stood. Came around the desk. "You okay?" Marcus wouldn't meet his eyes. "I heard about your program, the one helping people." "Yeah. You think there's room for a kitchen guy who wants to be more?" The question hit Ethan like a wave. "You want to apply?" "If you think I could, I've been working kitchens 30 years, never had a chance to do more. Thought maybe it was too late." "It's not too late." Ethan grabbed an application from his desk. "What do you want to do?" "Be a real chef, go to culinary school, learn the French techniques, work somewhere that's not a diner with broken equipment. Then let's make that happen." Marcus's eyes finally lifted. "You'd help me. After I told you to be careful, after I doubted you, you were protecting me. Nothing to apologize for." The application sat between them. Marcus picked it up with careful hands. "I don't know how to fill this out." "That's okay, we'll do it together." They spent an hour on it, background information, employment history, goals and aspirations. Marcus's handwriting was rough, but his words were clear. "I want to cook food that makes people happy. Real food, the kind that takes skill and care. I want to be proud of what I make." Ethan submitted the application that afternoon, flagged it priority. Victoria approved it the next morning. The program enrolled Marcus in the Culinary Institute downtown. Full tuition covered. They connected him with a mentor chef at one of the city's best restaurants. Within 2 weeks, he'd given notice at the diner and started classes. When Ethan told him, the older man's face crumpled. He turned away, shoulders shaking. "Hey," Ethan touched his arm. "You okay?" Marcus wiped his eyes roughly. "Nobody ever believed in me before, not like this. You earned this. You've worked hard for 30 years. This is just recognition of that." "No," Marcus turned back. His voice was thick. "This is you remembering where you came from. This is you being the kind of person your wife knew you were. The words landed heavy and warm. The program continued growing. By week 8, they'd helped 75 families. The success stories multiplied. Rachel got hired at a hospital doing medical billing. Daniel's programming job led to a promotion. Jennifer became a licensed electrician. Local news picked up the stories. Feel-good segments about second chances, about a billionaire who cared and a former waiter making a difference. Ethan deflected every interview request. This isn't about me, but Victoria's PR team insisted. One interview, just one, for credibility. He agreed reluctantly. A local television station came to the office, set up lights and cameras, asked questions about his journey. What made you qualified for this position? Direct experience with struggle. Understanding what it's like to make impossible choices. What's the most rewarding part? Seeing people's faces when they realize someone actually cares. The segment aired on a Thursday evening. Ethan watched it at home with Lily. She pointed at the screen. "That's you, Daddy, it is. You look funny on TV," he laughed. "Thanks, baby. But you sound like you, like when you talk about Mommy." He pulled her close, unable to speak. The response was immediate. Applications tripled overnight, phone calls, emails, people sharing stories of struggle and hope and desperation. The office couldn't handle the volume. Victoria approved funding for 3 more staff members. David got promoted to program coordinator. New systems were implemented. Ethan worked 16-hour days, reviewed applications, made calls, visited families. His wedding suit started wearing thin at the elbows. He bought 2 more suits from a discount store. Still felt like an imposter wearing them. In the break room one afternoon, Jennifer Matthews approached. The VP who'd questioned him in that first meeting. Coffee, she held out a cup. "Thanks," he took it cautiously. "I owe you an apology." Her voice was different, less sharp. "I doubted you, thought Victoria was making a mistake. And now I see 75 families with better lives. That's not a mistake. I appreciate that." She hesitated. "Then my sister is a single mother, works 3 jobs, can barely afford rent. I've been too proud to ask for help for her." "You don't have to be proud, just have her apply." The conversation shifted something. Other employees started nodding in hallways, asking questions about the program. A few even asked how they could volunteer. The isolation began to crack. Still, there were doubters. Robert Chen continued questioning budget allocations. Others whispered about sustainability. How long before Victoria got bored? How long before the money ran out? Ethan pushed the doubts aside and focused on the work. Every application, every phone call, every life potentially changed. At night, when Lily was asleep and the apartment was quiet, he sometimes pulled out his phone and looked at photos of Emily, wondered what she'd think of all this. He hoped she'd be proud, hoped she'd understand why he'd taken the risk. "You told me to give her the life you couldn't," he whispered to her picture. "I'm trying. God, I'm trying." Outside his window, the city glowed. Millions of people, millions of stories. And somewhere in that vast tangle of lights and lives, families were sleeping a little easier because someone had believed they deserved a chance. The program was working, but the real test was still coming. The call came at 2 in the morning on a Tuesday in April, 6 months into the program. Ethan had been dreaming about Emily when his phone lit up the darkness. David's voice was tight. "Miss Hale collapsed at the office. They're taking her to Presbyterian Hospital." Ethan was dressed and in his car within 5 minutes. The streets were empty at this hour. Traffic lights blinked yellow. His Honda's engine rattled louder in the silence. The hospital emergency room smelled like antiseptic and fear. David waited in the lobby, still wearing his suit from yesterday. His tie was loosened. His face was gray. "What happened?" "She's been working 90-hour weeks, skipping meals. The doctor said exhaustion and dehydration. Maybe worse, they're running tests. Can I see her family only right now?" They sat in plastic chairs under fluorescent lights that made everyone look sick. A television mounted in the corner played news with the sound muted. Ethan watched subtitles scroll past without reading them. At 4 in the morning, a doctor appeared. Victoria was stable but needed rest. Complete rest. No work for at least 2 weeks. Her assistant would need to handle everything urgent. David looked at Ethan. "The board meeting is scheduled for Thursday. Budget review for all initiatives, including second chances. Can we postpone? Victoria already tried." They refused, said the fiscal quarter closes Friday and decisions need to be made. Something cold settled in Ethan's stomach. Will she be there? The doctor said no travel, no stress. So no. They drove back as dawn broke over the city, pink and gold light touching glass towers. The world waking up to another day of business and decisions and lives changed by spreadsheets. Ethan went home. Checked on Lily. She was still asleep curled around Mr. Whiskers. He stood in her doorway and watched her breathe. Everything he'd built over the past 6 months suddenly felt fragile. Victoria had been the shield, the authority, the reason the board tolerated his unconventional methods. Without her there, what would happen? Thursday arrived too fast. Ethan wore his best suit, the one he'd bought 2 months ago, when the discount store had a sale. Navy blue, almost professional. The shoulders fit now that he'd started eating regular meals. The boardroom was on the 45th floor. Mahogany table, leather chairs, windows overlooking the financial district. 12 board members sat in expensive suits with tablets and spreadsheets and expressions that revealed nothing. Robert Chen sat at the head of the table in Victoria's absence. He was the interim chairman. His glasses caught the light as he reviewed documents. Ethan took his seat near the middle. David sat beside him with a laptop and a folder thick with program data. Robert called the meeting to order. His voice was measured and cold. We're here to review all active initiatives and make funding decisions for the next fiscal year. Due to Ms. Hale's medical situation, we need to proceed without her input. He pulled up a presentation. Numbers and charts filled the screens on every wall. The Second Chances Initiative has been operational for 6 months. Total expenditure to date $2.3 million. Projected annual cost $4.8 million. That's significantly above the original $3 million budget. A woman across the table leaned forward. Margaret Voss, Chief Financial Officer. Silver hair cut sharp at her jaw, eyes like calculators. What's the return on investment? Ethan spoke before David could. We've helped 143 families. 82 participants have found stable employment. 15 have completed educational programs. Children in the program show improved school attendance and performance. Margaret's expression didn't change. What's the return on investment in dollars? You can't measure human dignity in dollars. This company operates on dollars, Mr. Parker. Everything must be measurable. Robert nodded. That's the fundamental issue we're facing. This initiative is built on qualitative outcomes rather than quantitative returns. It's essentially charity disguised as corporate responsibility. It's corporate responsibility enacted properly. Ethan kept his voice level. We're investing in people who will become taxpayers, employees, community members. The return happens over years, not quarters. Another board member spoke up. Thomas Reeves, older, stern, with white hair and a face carved from stone. I've reviewed the numbers. The cost per family is $35,000 annually. We could achieve similar outcomes by simply writing checks. Why the overhead? Why the staff? Why the complexity? Because writing checks doesn't change systems. Ethan pulled out his own folder. Rachel Morrison, single mother of 2. We didn't just pay for her medical billing certification. We connected her with childcare, helped her negotiate her work schedule, provided mentorship. Now she's employed at Presbyterian Hospital making $42,000 a year. She's off food stamps. Her kids are thriving. That's not just a check. That's transformation. Thomas wasn't convinced. 143 anecdotes don't justify nearly $5 million. They're not anecdotes. They're people. People we cannot afford to subsidize indefinitely. Margaret's fingers moved across her tablet. Our profit margin last quarter was down 4%. Market conditions are tightening. We need to focus resources on core business functions. Robert adjusted his glasses. I propose we suspend the Second Chances Initiative pending further analysis. Transfer the remaining budget to areas with measurable ROI. We can revisit the program when conditions improve. The words hung in the air like smoke. Ethan felt something crack open in his chest. A door he'd been holding, closed for months. You want to cut it? We want to make fiscally responsible decisions. You want to cut it because it doesn't fit your spreadsheets, because you can't quantify dignity, because helping people doesn't show up in your quarterly earnings report. Mr. Parker, Robert's voice hardened. I understand you're emotionally invested, but emotion doesn't run companies. No. Ethan stood. The chair scraped against polished floor. But emotion runs lives, and that's what you're all forgetting. Every eye in the room locked on him. You sit here in your leather chairs on the 45th floor and talk about a return on investment like people are stock portfolios. But I've been there. I've worked 3 jobs and still come up short. I've chosen between my daughter's school supplies and the electric bill. I've counted coins for coffee and felt the weight of every pitying look from people who thought I didn't belong. His voice was shaking, but he didn't stop. Victoria's mother was a waitress, worked 2 jobs her entire life. When she got hurt, when they were going to lose everything, a construction worker who could barely afford breakfast organized a fundraiser. Saved them. Not because it was good business, because it was right. Margaret opened her mouth, but Ethan kept going. That construction worker didn't calculate ROI. He saw someone who needed help, and he helped. And because of that, Victoria Hale exists. This company exists. Every dollar you've made, every success you've celebrated, traces back to one man's kindness. The room was absolutely silent. You're not investing in a program. You're investing in dignity, in the chance that one of those 143 families produces the next Victoria Hale, the next person who changes the world because someone believed they were worth saving. He put his hands on the table, leaned forward. Rachel Morrison volunteers at the program now, helps other mothers navigate the system. Marcus Williams, a line cook for 30 years, is now a sous chef at Meridian. He mentors 2 younger cooks every week. Daniel Wright teaches free coding classes to other single fathers. That's not on any spreadsheet, but that's what lasts. That's what compounds. That's what creates value you can't measure but can't ignore. Thomas shifted in his seat. You're asking us to make business decisions based on hope. I'm asking you to make human decisions based on math. Ethan pulled out more documents. Every dollar we invest returns $3 to the community in taxes, spending, reduced social services. That's not hope. That's data. But you don't want to see it because it requires looking beyond the next quarter. His voice dropped lower. If you cut this program, you're not just cutting costs. You're cutting hope. You're telling 143 families that they don't matter, that their progress means nothing, that dignity has a price tag and they don't meet it. He straightened. So here's my position. Either you keep this program running or I walk. I won't be part of an organization that treats people like line items. Your choice. He sat down, his heart hammered. His hands were slick with sweat. Nobody spoke for 30 seconds that stretched into eternity. Then Margaret broke the silence. That was quite a speech. It was the truth. Robert removed his glasses, cleaned them with a cloth from his pocket. The motion was deliberate and slow. Mr. Parker, you've put us in a difficult position. Good. You're essentially threatening the board. I'm stating my principles. There's a difference, we issued. Thomas leaned back in his chair. The leather creaked. I have a question. What happens to those families if you walk? If we cut the program and you quit in protest, Ethan hadn't thought that far. The question hit him like cold water. They'd be left with nothing. Thomas continued. No program, no support, no champion fighting for them. Is that what you want? No. Then perhaps threats aren't the answer. Perhaps we need to find middle ground. Robert replaced his glasses. Thomas is right. This is more complex than either side is acknowledging. Margaret tapped her tablet. What if we restructure, keep the program but reduce costs, cut staff, limit intake? That's cutting it slowly instead of quickly. Ethan shook his head. These families need comprehensive support. Half measures don't work. Another board member spoke. Ellen Park, quiet until now. Asian woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and sharper intelligence. What if we find additional funding, corporate partnerships, grants, philanthropic donations? Take the burden off our core budget. That could work. David spoke up for the first time. I've already identified 3 potential partners interested in collaborative initiatives. Robert looked around the table. Show of hands. Who supports continuing the Second Chances initiative with revised funding structure? 6 hands rose, then 7, 8, 9 total, 3 short of unanimous but enough to pass. Robert nodded slowly. Motion carries. The program continues. Mr. Parker, you'll work with Ellen and David to develop sustainable funding models. We'll review again in 6 months. The meeting adjourned. Board members filed out. Some nodded at Ethan, others avoided his eyes. Ellen Park stopped beside his chair. You've got guts. That was either very brave or very stupid. Maybe both. She smiled. Victoria chose well. Don't make her regret it. After everyone left, David let out a long breath. I thought we were finished. So did I. You threatened to quit. In front of the entire board. I meant it. I know. David closed his laptop. That's why it worked. Ethan visited Victoria that evening. She was awake, propped up in a hospital bed with monitors beeping softly. Her face was pale, but her eyes were sharp. I heard about the board meeting. News travels fast. You threatened to walk. Had to. She smiled. Tired but genuine. My mother would have liked you. I hope so. They sat in comfortable silence. Outside the window, the city lit up as darkness fell. Millions of lights, millions of lives. Take care of it while I'm gone. Victoria's voice was soft. Don't let them forget why we started this. I won't. 6 months passed like water through fingers. The program continued. Funding stabilized through corporate partnerships and grants. More families joined. More success stories emerged. Ethan worked 50-hour weeks instead of 80. Victoria returned after a month, but she'd learned to delegate, to trust. The program became less dependent on any single person. In October, 1 year after that rainy night in the diner, Lily's scholarship letter arrived. The private school Victoria had mentioned. Full tuition through high school, starting immediately if they wanted. Ethan sat at the kitchen table holding the letter. This was the promise, the reward, everything he'd worked for. Lily came home from her public school that afternoon, backpack dragging, face bright. Guess what, Daddy? I got picked to be in the science fair. That's amazing, sweetheart. And Mrs. Chen said my project about ecosystems was the best in class. She dumped her backpack and pulled out drawings of food chains and water cycles. Her handwriting was improving. Her ideas were complex and thoughtful. Can I invite Maria to help? She's really good at art, and we could make posters together. Maria was her best friend since kindergarten. They'd been inseparable for 3 years. Of course you can. After dinner, Ethan sat Lily down on the couch. He showed her the scholarship letter. This school is supposed to be one of the best in the state. Small classes, great teachers, lots of opportunities. Her face lit up, then fell. But what about Maria and Mrs. Chen and my science fair project? You could still do the science fair, but not with Maria. She looked up at him with serious eyes. Would I have to leave my friends? Probably most of them, yeah. It's a different school, different kids. She was quiet for a long time. Then, do you want me to go? The question was so earnest, so trusting, like whatever he said would be absolutely right. I want you to be happy. That's all I've ever wanted. I'm happy now, at my school, with Mrs. Chen and Maria and my friends. Even though it's not fancy. Fancy doesn't matter, Daddy. You taught me that. His throat closed. When did you get so wise? She giggled. I learned from you. That night after Lily was asleep, Ethan wrote an email to the private school, thanking them, declining the scholarship, explaining that his daughter was thriving where she was, and that felt more important than prestige. He sent it before he could change his mind. The next morning, he told Victoria. She listened without interrupting. You're turning down a $50,000 scholarship. I am. Why? Because Lily's happy where she is. Because her friends are there. Because she's learning that success isn't about where you go, but who you become. Victoria was quiet. Then, your wife would be proud. I hope so. She is. Trust me. Friday night, his shift at Old Maple Diner. 1 year and 2 months since Victoria had walked in and changed everything. The diner felt smaller now, or maybe he'd grown larger, but it still felt like home. Marcus was gone, working at Meridian and loving it. Jenny had graduated from cosmetology school and opened her own salon. New servers worked the tables, young and tired and hopeful. But Joe still sat at the counter, still told stories, still drank coffee with secret whiskey when he thought nobody noticed. Ethan brought him a fresh cup. Joe, we've talked about this. The trucker grinned sheepishly, pushed the flask away. You're worse than my ex-wife. Your ex-wife probably saved your life. She tried. You succeeded. Near closing time, a man walked in, young, maybe 25, paint-stained work clothes, exhausted eyes, the kind of tired that went bone deep. He sat at the counter and studied the menu. His hands were rough, calluses on his palms, paint under his fingernails. Ethan brought water and a menu. Long day, 3 days actually. The man tried to smile. It came out hollow. What do you do? House painting. Commercial properties. Whatever I can get. He ordered coffee. Black. Nothing else. When Ethan brought the check, the total was $250. The man pulled out his wallet, counted bills, 3 ones and some change. Ethan picked up the check. This one's covered. Someone paid it forward. The man looked up. His eyes were suddenly wet. Seriously, seriously. Go home. Get some rest. I don't know what to say. I really needed this today. Just remember to help someone else when you can. After the man left, Ethan cleared the counter. That's when he noticed her. Victoria sat in the corner booth, the same booth where this had all started. Coffee and untouched pie. Watching. Ethan walked over. His heart did something strange. Recognition and gratitude and something deeper. You know, most CEOs don't hang out in diners at midnight. Most CEOs don't know what they're missing. She finished her coffee and stood, placed two $50 bills on the table. Beneath them was a folded note. Ethan picked it up. Read it. You're doing great. Keep going. VH. He looked up, but she was already walking toward the door. She stopped and turned back. That man you just helped, his name is Daniel Torres. He's a painter, a good one, putting himself through art school. How do you know? Because I've been keeping track. He's going to be fine, just like all the others. Because someone saw him. Because you saw him. She smiled. Just like someone saw you, she left. The door chimed. Cold air rushed in. Ethan stood holding the note and the $100. He put the money in the tip jar for the other servers, but kept the note. Outside, the November rain had started again. 1 year full circle. The neon sign reflected in puddles, red and blue light dancing on wet pavement. He locked up the diner. Bob had already left. The kitchen was dark. The booths were empty. His phone buzzed. A text from Lily. Love you, Daddy. See you in the morning. He texted back, love you too, baby. Sweet dreams. The drive home took 15 minutes. Same route, same streets. But everything felt different. The program was helping 200 families now. Rachel managed the intake department. Marcus mentored young cooks. Daniel from tonight would probably apply next month. The ripple expanded. Touch one life, change another. Help one person, watch them help 3 more. From Sarah Hale to a nameless construction worker. From that worker to Victoria. From Victoria to him. From him to Rachel and Marcus and Daniel and hundreds of others. The note in his pocket felt warm. At home, he checked on Lily. She was asleep with her science textbook open beside her. Notes about ecosystems, drawings of food chains, dreams of understanding how everything connected. He closed the book gently, pulled the blanket up to her chin, kissed her forehead. Some tips weren't measured in dollars. Some tips changed lives. And some tips kept changing them, rippling outward in ways you could never predict or control or fully understand. The note from Victoria sat on his dresser. He read it one more time before bed. You're doing great. Keep going. He would, not because he had to, not because he was paid to, but because some debts could only be repaid by passing them forward. Because dignity mattered. Because being seen mattered. Because sometimes one person's kindness created waves that never stopped spreading. Outside his window, the city slept. 200 families sleeping easier tonight. Tomorrow there would be more. Next month more still. The work would never be finished. But that was okay. Some work wasn't meant to end. It was meant to multiply, to spread, to become something larger than any single person could imagine. Ethan turned off the light, lay down in the darkness. Thought about Emily and hoped she could see this. All of it, the struggle and the triumph and the ongoing battle to make the world slightly less cruel. Give her the life I couldn't give her. He was trying and maybe finally succeeding. Not because he'd escaped poverty, but because he'd learned to transform it, to take the pain of struggle and turn it into fuel for helping others struggle less. The rain tapped against the window. Gentle rhythm. The city breathed in sleep. And somewhere out there, someone who'd been helped today would help someone else tomorrow. the chain unbroken. The ripple expanding forever outward into water that had no shore.